Responsible for 700 direct and 200 indirect jobs, São Bento Mineração, an Eldorado Gold Corporation subsidiary, ranks among the 5 largest companies extracting gold in Brazil, with an annual income of $35 million. The attention given by the company to environmental matters are demonstrated via the several production processes, totaling an annual $3 million expenditure in this area. To start with, the water taken from the Conceição River is purified in a water treatment station. The sewage resulting from the installations is recycled via a sewer treatment station, ETE, to finally return clean to the waterways of the region. Attracting the environmentalists' attention, the backfill method, an underground mining technique, is used in the mineral extraction phase. After the area has been exhausted, a big part of the waste is sent back to its origin as pulp. After drainage, the waste, besides not being deposited on the surface, is used to fill the previously exhausted area. Another advantage of the process is the water working in a cycle, being pumped back to the metallurgical plant, minimizing the conduction of the surrounding spring water. The metallurgical process is equally clean. The gold concentrate goes through a so-called bioleaching, consisting of ore oxidation with native bacteria adapted to this specific end. The concentrate then is pressure oxidized, generating a liquid effluent harmless to the environment. After the neutralization, the effluents are poured in a tailings dam where the most rigid standards of safety and control are daily monitored. For internal purposes, the water is monitored at 4 main determined points. To comply with the environmental laws, a monthly schedule of analysis is carried out at 14 other places, checking the effluents poured both into the Conceição River and into the water table downstream from the tailings dam. After solid settling, the water is pumped back to the metallurgical plant, where it is treated and cycled back clean to the Conceição River. São Bento also maintains a tree nursery, developing native species of seedlings. Another initiative of the company is the CEA, an environmental education center to supply employees and community with environmental information. With the specific purpose of answering doubts, giving information, and responding to environmental questions in the company area, a telephone number 3837-7190 has been established. To evaluate the relationship between the mining metallurgical activities and the environment, early in 2003, a highly respected and well-known team composed of biologists Marco Antonio de Andrade and Márcia Viegas Grego Andrade was hired by the company. For studies in the flora and forestry area, the engineer Worley Augusto Caldas Carvalho and the student Evandro Luiz Machado were also hired. The central purpose of this diagnosis was to evaluate the species and the life of plants and animals in their natural habitat, and to offer activities for environmental education and propose measures for preservation and conservation of those remaining native species. As can be seen, at São Bento, the environment is taken seriously. São Bento Mine is located in Santa Bárbara, Minas Gerais State, close to the town of Barão de Cocais, or 100 kilometers from Belo Horizonte. Its highest elevation is 1,049 meters at Pintabeng. and the lowest is 725 meters, registered in the largest bed of the rivers Conceição, Santa Bárbara, and Socorro. The tropical climate is predominant in the region. Thanks to the mineralogical characteristics, the mineral exploration is made underground, thus defending 490 hectares of native woods. With an approximate 440 hectares of native forest area, São Bento understands its responsibility for the preservation of this important ecosystem. In order to quantify and study the existing animal and plant species, the researchers' work usually begins early in the dawn hours, as soon as the animals are showing their greatest activities and making movements and sounds in their search for food. One of the techniques used by the researchers to watch the fauna was a 4 fog nets or mist nets transect installation at the edge of or just inside the forest for capturing the birds. To attract them, special equipment to record and replay the bird songs was used by the biologists. Early in the morning, the first bird to be caught was a João Botina do Brejo. Every necessary caution was taken not to hurt the birds when taking them out of the net, which requires special ability and technique. Once captured, the species were diagnosed, weighed, measured, and studied by the technicians. And then other species were captured and studied, among them the popular tico-tico, a papa-arroz, a filipe, a surari de garganta branca, e a patim. For the research being made in February, in the rainy and reproductive season, it was observed that some birds demonstrated signs of incubation. When blowing on the belly, the ones with no feathers were identified as those setting eggs or caring for little birds in the nest. After being studied, all the birds were set free. Another method used by the biologists was the transect scan. One day before the data collection, the researchers tracked 2 predominant trails in the woods, from west to north, crossing the predominant vegetation. At every 50 meters, the technicians placed an identification to determine points of study. When returning to those places a day later, they were able to make the registration of identifiable birds by sound and visually on the maps of the area, by observing the standard time of stoppage. Through the same technique, the forestry engineers also studied the vegetable species encountered. Field studies were based on the direct and indirect observation of species by interviewing the company employees and searching for results that proved their presence in the area being checked and studied by the company. All this collected material has been made available at CEA SBM Environmental Education Center. Regarding the flora, 159 plant species from 49 different families were registered by the researchers. From these, 4 have been considered species presumed to be threatened by extinction, such as Araticum, the alacrene, the cataguá, and candeia. As critically endangered, the canela was found, and as species considered and presumed vulnerable of extinction, the jacarandá and Diospirus inconstans. To date, 94 species of birds have been cataloged in the fauna by the researchers. One species calls for attention for being threatened by extinction in all the national territory, the jaco-guaçu. 2 other species of birds encountered in SBM are considered as threatened by extinction, the choquinha and one supposed to be threatened by extinction, the Pomba amagosa. Also, 94 medium and large-sized species of mammal were encountered, some of them considered threatened of being extinguished, such as lobo guará, a type of wolf. By daylight, not only squirrels but also deer, coatis, and capivaras can be seen feeding among the neighboring trees. Standing out is the irreverent and curious Mico estrella, a type of small monkey that, even having the young on their back, do not hesitate to come close to the SPM workers to be fed. In the evening, some of the night habits animals come out. Foxes wake up hungry for food and soon stroll by the company backyard. Some other animals are not so easily seen. There have also been found feces and footprints left by the animals in the bush. This print, for example, is a footprint of a deer found right in the middle of the São Bento operational complex. Biologists made plaster molds of the prints, which will be exhibited at the CEA. Wild fruit trees were encountered in the entire area of São Bento, providing food for the wild animals. As a result, these animals have significantly helped with replanting vegetation and restoring the environment through the dispersion of fruit seeds. According to the technicians' evaluation, the São Bento woods, even though submitted to degradation by man in the past, is a currently preserved area which represents today an important shelter for the survival and refuge of hundreds of species of plants and animals. Thanks to its strategic location near to the neighboring urban center, to company care of the environment, and an important private reserve neighboring the national patrimony, Santuário do Caraça, where you will encounter a significant preserved ecosystem, open to the public for tourism and scientific studies. Through sizable environmental investments, São Bento Mineração has shown its belief in the possibility of developing a large area in perfect harmony with its ecosystem. Thus, acting responsibly, the human race continues its development and nature remains grateful.